Hi, everybody. It's good to have you here today. I really appreciate your time. I know what a busy time of year this is, and I hope that you are able to learn a lot from what we talk about today. So today we're going to be going over our Read Naturally Live program, which is our flagship fluency intervention on the Read Live platform. So there are 4 programs in Read Live. There's Read Naturally Live, Word Warm-Ups Live, 1 Minute Reader Live, and Read Naturally Live Espanol. The Read Live platform consists of 4 comprehensive research-based interventions. It was developed over 30 years ago by teachers and is used in thousands of schools all over the world today. All of our programs provide differentiated instruction for RTI MTSS model, and it's a cloud-based platform, so it can be used anywhere, including at home for remote learning. So here are some details about the 4 programs in Read Live. First is Read Naturally Live, which is our fluency intervention. It also supports vocabulary, comprehension, and phonics. Word Warm-Ups Live is our separate phonics intervention. It can be used on its own or in tandem with Read Naturally Live. 1 Minute Reader Live is our independent reading fluency program. And Read Naturally Live Espanol is the same content as Read Naturally Live, just everything is in Spanish, including the student instructions. So we're going to take a really close look at Read Naturally Live today. As I said, it focuses on fluency and phonics with additional support in vocabulary, comprehension, and spelling. In this program, students work through audio-supported steps to read stories accurately and fluently, and then they demonstrate their understanding by answering comprehension questions. Read Naturally Live has many benefits for students. It helps build fluency and motivation through reading short nonfiction passages. It also increases reading accuracy and expression with the audio support. Students are also going to strengthen their comprehension and their vocabulary skills as they read and reread the story. Students will build automaticity in decoding through targeted lessons in phonics in our phonics levels. Students work independently most of the time in Read Naturally Live. There are 9 steps in the program, and 1 or 2 of them should be with the teacher. And the best thing about Read Naturally Live is that students are going to experience success and an improved attitude toward reading. So today we're talking about the Read Naturally strategy, which is meant to help students improve their fluency. But keep in mind that fluency is just one component of a well-balanced reading program. So your students should also be receiving grade level instruction in phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, and comprehension. So what is fluency? As teachers, we know that fluent readers are able to read orally with an appropriate speed, accuracy, and expression, or prosody. Read Naturally focuses on fluency because educators and researchers have realized that fluency is a critical building block of reading because it's directly related to comprehension. This chart here shows just how closely related oral reading fluency is to comprehension. All of the measures in this table, oral recall and retelling, close, and question answering, are closely correlated to comprehension. Anything above a 0.6 coefficient is considered close correlation, but oral reading fluency is by far the highest. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that is. So we're going to do a short activity just to show how important automaticity is in building fluency. I want you all to participate with me. We're going to start off by reading the words in the first 2 rows of this slide. So go ahead and start reading the words. Ready? Begin. Okay, that was pretty easy, right? Now, I want you to say the name of the color that each word is written in. Just say the name of the color. Ready? Begin. That was a lot harder, wasn't it? And the reason it's hard for us to say the name of the color is because we're already automatic with those words. You can't stop reading the word even when you try not to. So as automatic readers, we're able to put all of our mental energy into creating meaning out of what we read. And that's what we want for our students too. Now, how do you know which of your students need support in fluency? This table, which was developed by Jan Hasbrook and Gerald Tyndall and contains data from thousands of students, helps tell where students fall in terms of their 50th percentile oral reading fluency norms. Let's take a look at third graders in the fall in the 50th percentile. They read about 83 words correct per minute on average. And you can see across the row, they improve, that score goes up. And that's true for students at every grade level. You might notice that we don't have older students on this table, and that's because their scores are very similar to 6th grade scores. This table is included in your handout so that you can look up 7th and 8th grade scores if those are the type of students that you work with. Now let's think about what happens to a third grader with average fluency rates above the 50th percentile compared to a third grader with average fluency rates below the 50th percentile. A fairly proficient third grader might have an average fluency rate of 104 words correct per minute in the fall and progress to an average fluency rate of 139 words correct per minute by the spring. But a struggling third grader who's only at the 25th percentile is starting out the year at 59 words correct per minute and might reach only 91 words correct per minute by the spring. What's the problem here? There's a big gap between where our struggling reader is at the end of the year and where our proficient reader started the year. So we need to close that gap. That struggling reader needs to make more progress in a year than an average student. I want you to think for a minute about a non-fluent reader in your classroom and see if you agree with the words and bullets here. These students are slow readers. They read word by word rather than in phrases. They might ignore punctuation, and it might be painful for us as teachers to listen to them read. Of course, all of our students do not read this way. You're going to have students in your room who are already fluent and they're good at comprehending the text, so they're not going to need a supplemental reading intervention. But for students who do struggle with fluency, something like Read Naturally can really help them. How do you identify these students? Well, you need to listen to your students read out loud. And let's look at some more research that helps us identify which students need reading intervention. The National Reading Panel, in its research, found that just encouraging our students to read more independently is not the most effective way to improve their reading achievement. And we know this in practice. When we give our students time to read independently, what do? In my class, they would pick a book that looked like everybody else's, and they would sit and they would pretend to read. This is not making them progress and get better at reading. Think about this for a minute. In 10 minutes of independent reading time, a fluent reader might read 2,000 words, while a struggling reader might read only 500 words. That's equal reading time, but definitely not equal practice. And think about how that disparity is going to play out over the course of a year. So what do? These students need to read more, but often just telling them to read on their own doesn't work. So a more effective course of action is for us to explicitly teach our struggling readers how to read more fluently, step by step. And we have 3 strategies that help are struggling readers. The first strategy is teacher modeling. This could be teacher assisted, peer assisted, or audio assisted. And it's more than just listening to a good reader read. Our students need to be actively engaged in the process in a multi-sensory way. The next strategy that we use is repeated reading. This is reading the same material over and over. It builds accuracy and it builds expression. This is a form of mastery learning, so it helps our students build confidence so that when they tackle unfamiliar texts, they have the confidence of knowing the bank of words that they have already learned through previous passages. And the third strategy is progress monitoring. And this is our motivation. This is our hook, how we get our students engaged and motivated. Think of it like playing a video game. Your students are given a specific goal and immediate feedback on how they're reaching that goal. And they will be able to know if they've met their goal before you even do. So all of these strategies can be incorporated into what you're doing in your reading class right now, and it will make a positive difference in what your students are doing. The Read Naturally strategy combines all three of these strategies, teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring, into a single powerful strategy. The 9 steps in Read Naturally Live include these strategies, and we'll talk about that more when we get to the demo portion. Combining these 3 strategies in this way can have dramatic results for your developing and struggling readers. The strategy was first developed over 30 years ago in the Minneapolis public schools by Candace Einott, who's one of the founders of Read Naturally. She tried the Read Naturally strategy with her special education students in her 3rd grade classroom. And she found that when they combined these 3 strategies of teacher modeling, repeated reading, and progress monitoring, her students made a greater gains per week than their peers. That was in phase 1 of the study. So in phase 2, Candace used the Read Naturally strategy with her Title I students in her classroom as well. And they also made greater gains than their peers. There are other studies on our website that you can take a look at that show strong evidence for the Read Naturally strategy based on the Every Student Succeeds Act requirements. And you can check it out on our website. So let's get into some of the specifics of Read Naturally Live. Read Naturally Live has 3 different series: the Sequence Series, the Phonics Series, and the Idioms Series, with a total of 13 levels from 0.8 all the way up through 8.0. We do have a Spanish read-along available in the Sequence Series. It's appropriate for students in grades 1 through 8, and it's good as an intervention for beginning readers all the way up through adults. We recommend that students work in Read Naturally Live 3 to 5 times per week, 30 to 45 minutes per session. The more time they spend in the program, the more progress they'll make. Here's a table that shows the different series and level options for Read Naturally Live. We've got the Sequence Series, the Phonics Series, and the Idioms Series. This table in the lower right-hand corner shows the different phonics patterns that are addressed in each of our phonics levels. Our stories are grouped according to their readability, ranging from 1st through 8th grade. And at many of the levels, you have a choice of which series is most appropriate for your student, whether it's sequenced, phonics, or idioms. So the Sequence Series is our basic curriculum. Each level has 24 stories, and it has Spanish support at levels 1.0 through 5.6. The Phonics Series also has 24 stories per level, and each level features a different set of phonics elements. This is an example from our Phonics Series. You can see that the words there beside the stars all have long vowels with silent E. So students are going to practice those phonics words throughout each story. Then the Idioms Series is great for English language learners or maybe students on the autism spectrum. It teaches students phrases like in the bag or ace up your sleeve. And it has 12 stories per level. Of course, the first teacher responsibility is going to be setting up your workspace. And Read Naturally Live is great in many different areas. You could use it in your resource room, as a station in your classroom, even in an after-school program. And we recommend a teacher-to-student ratio of 1:8. 1:6 is even better for our Phonics series. And again, scheduling 5 days is preferred, 30 to 45 minutes per session. Placement in Read Naturally Live involves determining the appropriate level for your student based on their performance on our built-in placement assessment. You're going to select which series is appropriate for your student and then set a words correct per minute goal for your student. I'm going to hop out of the PowerPoint and show you some different features on our website to help you train your students in how to use the program. And then we'll do a short demo. So here's the Read Live help page. There's a lot of information here, a lot of short videos for you to watch. And then here is the student video series. This is a great way to train your students in how to use the program. Altogether, the videos will take 20 minutes. You can show one video per day and then have the students work through the steps that are shown in the video. Now I'm going to walk you through how to do placement of a student and show you some of the other features of the website. So I'm going to go to the home screen. I'm going to log in as a staff member. Okay. This is the home page. There's an orientation and resources page with links that you can click on if you need more help, including our Read Live help page. And here's our home page. Now, I'm an administrator, so I have more tiles than you're going to have as a teacher if you're a teacher. But I'm going to show you how to add a student and license a student, and then we'll go through the placement process with a student. So when you add a student, you've got this blue button up here in the left-hand corner. So you just click on that. Notice some of the fields have asterisks. Those are the fields that are required for this. So I'm going to enter in our student, Anna. I want to make sure that she's active. Her status is active. Anna is in the 7th grade, and she goes to school 1. Her user ID is a unique user ID. Want to make sure it's different than other students. And then her password is not unique to her. It helped me to have all of my students have the same password because that way I didn't have to spend a lot of time looking it up. I want to make sure I license this student and notice that they're automatically enrolled in Read Naturally Live and 1 Minute Reader Live. You could also add these other 2 programs if they need it. And notice too, the blue button here, this is a great place to click just for additional information. You can enter contact information over here, but you don't need to. And of course, you want to make sure you save and close after you enter each student. Oh, and I didn't select a lead teacher, so I need to do that. Now I can save and close. And then there's Miss Anna right there. Now I'm going to log out as a staff member and log back in as Anna, and I'll walk you through the placement process. So I'm going to go back to the home screen, log in as a student. And the very first thing that comes up, you can see she's got Read Naturally Live and 1 Minute Reader Live. So I'm going to go ahead and conduct placement for Anna.
Before you can begin working, your teacher must assign you a series, level, and goal. Please tell your teacher.
So we've always got audio directions that go along with the steps. And then as a teacher, I'm going to click here on conduct placement. And I have to log back in as a teacher. And the first thing I need to do is to select what level I want to test Anna. And a good rule of thumb is to test 2 grade levels below the student's actual grade level. So since Anna is in the 7th grade, I'm going to start testing her at level 5.0. And I'll click on the next button. Notice that only the first sentence is legible here. The rest of the story is grayed out so that the student can't practice reading the story before I start listening to her read. And that just helps with accuracy of identification of her abilities. So when I click on the start timing button, Anna's going to start reading. She's going to read for 1 minute, and I'm going to click on the last word that she read. And then I'm also, while she's reading, I'm sitting right next to her. So I'm going to keep track, I'm going to tally how many words she misses, either on my fingers, I could make little marks on a notepad, whatever I need to do to see how many words she misses there. And of course, 1 minute seems like forever when you're on the demo, but it goes pretty quickly. Just tell your students to start when they're ready. You don't need to say ready, set, go, or anything like that. This needs to be a relaxed environment. It's not anything that you're going to tell their parents about or turn into the principal or anything like that. It's just an opportunity for them to show you how well they can read. And they need to read aloud, of course.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
Okay, so this was the last word Anna read, and she made 8 errors. So she read 85 words correct in that minute time. Okay, now it's going to show me her results. And notice that her score is 85 words correct per minute, but the placement range for level 5.0 is 60 to 80. So she's outside of the placement range for this particular level. And the computer is going to tell me that her results don't fit in a range, so they can't recommend a level yet. So we're going to test the student again, and the computer suggests what level is best. So I'm going to click on next. I'm going to click on 5.6 to test her next. So once again, I'm going to start timing. She's going to read out loud for me, and I'm going to keep track of the words she misses in that minute. Notice over here that there is a reading guide that's optional. You can turn that on or off depending on what your students need. Some of them will need that additional support, but some of them will not. So that's something you'll figure out as you go along. And remember, the placement process will take about 5 minutes per student, depending on how many different levels you have each student read. So think about that while you're kind of planning your placement process. A great idea is to have the students who aren't sitting with you in reading work in 1 Minute Reader Live. They're all automatically placed in 1 Minute Reader Live. It's completely independent, and they can select their own level in 1 Minute Reader Live.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
Okay, so her last word was only. Okay, so now at level 5.6, Anna read 83 words correct, and that is within the range. So I have only one option, the sequenced level 5.6, with a story goal of 120 words correct per minute. And the way that goal is found is it takes her score, it adds 40 to it, and then it rounds to the nearest 5. Okay, so this assignment is now saved for Anna. So the next time she logs in, she'll be able to get started right away with level 5.6 and read the next story.
Please select a story.
All right, so I'm going to log Anna out and log in as a different student to show you the steps of the program. So let me go ahead and log in. All right, so here's student 3. She is going to choose a story.
Please select a story.
I just want to point out a couple things on this screen. At any time, the teacher can log in by clicking on the apple and entering their login information. Let me go ahead and do that, and I'll show you the story options that you can choose for your students. There are a lot of different ways to differentiate for students, and I just want you to be aware of that. So here's the teacher menu within Read Naturally Live. You can change the story options anytime. Here are the steps for Read Naturally Live. You can toggle on and off any of these steps. We do not require, but suggest very strongly that the teacher is with the student for the cold timing step. And I'll show you how that works in just a minute. For the read along step, it can be set anywhere from 0 all the way up to 10. So if you have students that need additional practice in time, you can set that higher for them. I have it set at 0 just for the demo today. And here's also where you turn on the Spanish read-alongs part of the story, where the students are first allowed to read the story in Spanish, and then they read it in English. And that's great for our English language learners. The practice step can also be adjusted, the number of times a student practices from 1 up through 10. Again, I've set it at 1 for the purposes of the demo. And you can also, for your older students, rather than 1 minute, you can set it for 2 minutes or for the whole story. So let's hop out of here and go back to our main screen.
Select a story.
He's going to remind us you need to select a story. So I'm going to select this story about zebras today.
Zebras.
Are you ready to start this story? Click each key word to learn the word and what it means.
So the keyword step.
Pattern. A pattern is a set of things, like colors, shapes, lines, or sounds, that is repeated.
So the keyword step is first. It's going to walk them through several words that are in the story.
Recognize. Recognize means to know what something is after seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, or tasting it. Alex knows Mom is baking cookies because he can recognize the smell coming from the kitchen. Species. Species are groups of plants or animals that are alike in certain ways. Mammals include many species, such as lions, giraffes, and humans. Zoologists. Zoologists are people who study animals.
Click a word again, or click next to continue.
I want to point out a couple of things on this screen as well. Notice up at the top, you've got your progress bar, and the red arrow tells what step you're on at all times. Notice that each of those keywords had either a picture or a definition.
Look at the story title, keywords, and picture. Write a prediction about the story. Then click next to continue.
The prediction step is great for building background knowledge. It allows students to kind of tell what they might already know or make a prediction about what they think is going to happen in the story. For younger students who struggle with keyboarding, this is a step that you can turn off in the story options, and I certainly encourage you to do that. We want our students to be reading as much as possible, not getting frustrated with using the keyboard or typing. You can also, for older students, require them to include a keyword in their prediction or require them to type a certain number of sentences.
Play wordtastic while you wait for your teacher. Click the best answer to score points. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you.
So this is a great vocabulary activity for students to do while they're waiting for you. And you know that they're waiting for you when the screen is red at the top and the bottom. So now you can go in and you can conduct what we call their cold timing. This is an unpracticed 1-minute read on the story about zebras.
Click Start Timing and begin reading.
So this is similar to the placement that I showed you. It has a couple of differences. You can click on any word in the story and it'll read it for you.
Purposes. Zoologists.
So the student is reading aloud. You are sitting next to them, listening to them read. You can guide them to click on words they stop on, stumble on, or skip. Or you can do the clicking. It kind of depends on the age and ability of the student. Some of your older students are going to want to have that independence, although it is hard for them to own up to missing a word or not knowing a word. Hopefully, once they've looked at the student training videos and seen how a student actually uses the program, they'll feel more comfortable. And that's part of what we do as teachers too. All right.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
So I'm going to click on the last word the
Click
student
Next
read.
to continue. Look at how many words you read correctly per minute. Click Next to continue.
So this is where the student gets to see their cold timing score compared to their goal. Of course, we don't expect that they're going to be reading up to their goal on the very first time they read a new passage. But next is the read along step.
Click Start Read Along to read along, or click Next to continue.
So on the read along step, we have a talented adult narrator who reads the story, and the student is going to read along with that narrator quietly to themselves. You might call it whisper reading.
Most people know that zebras are wild horses with stripes and that they live in Africa.
Click Start Read Along to read along again.
I also want to point out that the rate of the narrator here is really important. They're going to start out reading the story a little bit slower, and then gradually after each read along, they'll get a little bit faster as students become more familiar with and confident with the words in the story. So let's go on to the next step, which is our practice step.
Click Start Timing and begin reading. Click on the words you don't know to hear them read to you. Click Finished if you finished reading before the bell sounds.
So once again, the student's going to be reading out loud, this time without the narrator. This is that repeated reading step. So they're practicing the same story multiple times, anywhere from 3 up to 7 or 8. And they practice reading the story enough times so that they make 3 or fewer errors and they meet their goal when they're done. So those are our criteria for quote unquote passing the story. And once again, they can click on any word they want to in the story and it will read it to them again. Some words like zoologist are not phonetically regular words, so they're a little bit more challenging for students to read. So encourage students to use that audio support. It's a great help to them, and it helps develop their confidence as well. Some of our stories do have 2 pages, so make sure your students are aware of that so that if they finish.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
Okay, so I'm going to click on the last word the student read.
You've reached your goal. You've finished all your practices. Click Start Timing to practice again, or click Next to continue.
So again, your student's going to practice anywhere from 3 all the way up to 10 times. We do find that students who are English language learners or who need additional support need additional practices. And that's a confidence builder for your students as well.
Click the best answer and then click Next.
So what all of our comprehension questions are going to fall into a pattern. We always start out with a main idea question. They get that little sound if they get the answer correct. And they get that answer if it's incorrect. There's also going to be a vocabulary question. And questions that ask the student to draw conclusions or make inferences as well. And then there's going to be a short answer. Again, this might be something you don't have your students do if they struggle with keyboarding. This is something they can tell you orally later on, just like in the prediction step. We've also got drop-down activities so that your students can practice with vocabulary words.
Extinct. Determine. Serve.
And then a close activity.
Exactly. Pattern. Zebras.
And in the close activity, all the words are clickable. So chances are they've seen the words before, but if they need a little additional support, that's okay too.
Zoologists.
And the students always giggle at this part with rear halves.
Extinct.
I want to point out, and I'm sure you've noticed this, that our stories are all nonfiction, and that really helps students learn a little something, build their background knowledge, and
Now
have
you're ready to pass.
additional
Read
information.
the story and play wordtastic until your teacher comes to pass you on this story. Click Start Timing and begin reading.
All right, so now we're at the pass step. The student, again, is going to be reading aloud with you. You're going to be following along with them.
Click
Don't forget
Start
to,
Timing
yeah.
and begin reading again.
I'm going to log in as the teacher because the screen was red at the top and the bottom. Then I'll go ahead and start timing. Remember, I'm listening to the student read. I'm counting how many words they missed as they went along. Hopefully they make less than 3 errors. And the other thing that I'm listening for is their expression. Are they pausing at commas and stopping at periods? Are they reading with expression, similar to the model that they had at the beginning? That's something else you want to listen for. Notice that you can turn the reading guide on and off in this step as well. And we didn't talk about the retell step because I've turned it off for the demo, but that's something that the student can do after they answer the comprehension questions. It's a chance for them to just briefly summarize the story. And again, that's a part that they can do orally too.
Click on the last word you read when the bell sounded.
Okay, so they read 112 words correct per minute. Their expression, I'll give it a 3. And if you want to take a look at what the criteria are for the different expression levels, you can look right here. It talks about pausing, using correct phrasing. That's an important part of understanding what they read. So we want to make sure our students are improving in that area as well. All right, so now we can see that they have exceeded their goal on their hot timing on this story. And they've got that little reinforcer and motivation there. Then I need to review their short answer question. And then it gives me their results. Ideally, I want to see all gold stars here. Of course, that's not always going to happen. But if I click on this box, it takes me back to that question. It tells me what their answer was, and it allows the student to go back and look at the story again to find the right answer. So that's a great reteaching tool that you can use right in the moment. After you listen to them do their past step, you can go back and review the story again. It's also nice to be able to see their progress, to see which questions they got correct and missed on the comprehension part, and to see the details for that particular story. So let's go on to the next step. This is where I decide as a teacher whether I'm going to have the student go back and redo the questions, which is always a good idea. That's the only thing that they missed, is one comprehension question. They didn't have any errors when they read, their expression was good, and they exceeded their goal. So I need to make a decision. Am I going to have the student redo the missed questions, or am I just going to pass? And I'm going to go ahead and pass them on this one. So here,
Congratulations, you passed this story. Click Done to finish.
so this is another motivational piece for our students. You might also in your classroom have a chart with stars on it. You might have a goal for the students per week, or a class goal of how many stories they complete. Anything you can do to motivate and get your students reading more is always good.
Please select a story.
Typically, it'll take 35 to 45 minutes for a student to finish a story, and we'd like to see them completing 1 to 2 stories per week. So let's go back and finish up our PowerPoint. We've just got a couple more slides here. Here are the steps for Read Naturally Live. As you can see, they follow along just like we did in the demo. This is something that you might want to have at hand when you're working with Read Naturally Live, so you can check with each student on a daily basis. What step are you on today? And we are at the end. We've talked about Read Naturally Live basics. I hope that you have a better understanding of the program and feel comfortable and confident using it in your classroom. And as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or our customer service department. And do check out our website. It's got some great tools and tips for teachers. Christy, are there any questions for us?
We had a question. Somebody asked if they can print the placement stories.
Great question. Yes, you absolutely can print the placement stories and the stories for each level too. And you do that in the teacher menu inside the student platform.
Great, thanks so much. So we're running out of time, so I just want to remind everybody that we'll be sending out follow-up emails with links to the webinar recording in about 24 hours. Please feel free to share the recording with your colleagues. And also there'll be survey questions that will appear on your screen after the webinar. If you could fill that out, that'd be great, so we can continue to improve the educational experience for all of you and our future webinars. Thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.